So you're thinking about moving to Austin, Texas, and now you're expanding your search. You're looking at cities north of Austin. Well, you know what? One of those cities is going to be Cedar Park. And why is that? Because Cedar Park is widely considered to be one of the most desirable places to live north of Austin. And there's really good reason for that. In this video, I'm going to share with you some interesting facts and information about Cedar Park, and then I'm going to take you for a map tour so that we can go over the general layout of the city, major subdivisions, and points of interest. Let's go check it out. Let's now dive into some fun facts very briefly about Cedar Park. And here I have Data USA, which is a really cool website run by Deloitte. They have aggregated information from a wide variety of reliable sources on every city in the United States of America. So this is a great place to learn about some of the stats of any city in the country. So as of 2023, the population in Cedar Park is 77,474 people. And the median age of a Cedar Park resident is 37.5 years old. And as of 2023, the median household income is $123,972, which does place it above the median household income of Austin, Texas. Now, appropriate for a real estate channel, as of 2023, the median home price is $474,800. Now, I do want to point out that from May of 2022 to today, which is in mid-2025, we have been in a steady decline in price. There's been a downturn in the housing market here in the greater Austin area. Actually, if we look at the Austin area as a whole, prices have gone down almost, well, actually a little over 20%, depending on who you're talking to, 20%, 23%, somewhere around there. So this figure is a little bit different today, but this does still give you kind of a general idea of where price is at in Cedar Park. I have other videos here on the channel where I walk through some of these neighborhoods. For example, if we go into Breakaway Park, we have multi-million-dollar houses. If we go into a place like Town Center, another popular neighborhood, we have mid $300,000 to low $400,000 houses. So there's a little bit of something for everybody in Cedar Park. And let's go ahead now and look at the map. And we're going to take a map tour of Cedar Park, and we're going to get a sense of the lay of the land, the layout of the city, points of interest, and interesting subdivisions that you might want to know about. Let's go check it out. By the way, my name is Jeremy Critt, and I'm a licensed real estate broker here in the greater Austin area. Every single day, people on YouTube watching me are sending me text messages, they're calling me on the phone, they're booking time on my calendar. If you're thinking about relocating to the greater Austin area, or you already live here and you're thinking about making a move, get in touch. All of my information is in the description of this video, and I look forward to helping you make your move a great success. And don't forget to press that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so that you'll be the first to know of new developments happening here in the greater Austin area. Let's get into it. All right, let's now get into the map, and we're going to look at Cedar Park, Texas here on the Google map. And what I've done is I've had Google give a little outline of Cedar Park, the city limit borders. So you can see that here along the perforated line, this red line here that shows you the shape of Cedar Park. And what I want to point out is where Cedar Park is in relationship to some other cities. So first is, if you go east, you see we have Round Rock. And if you go this way, which is kind of northeast, we have Georgetown up in here. It's a little bit outside of here, but Georgetown begins right around, well, Georgetown actually is kind of around here, like this, okay? And then if we go west, we have Lago Vista. Jonestown is kind of on the way, but Lago Vista would be the major, that's all this in here, okay? And if we go north, we have Leander. And if we go a little bit further north, we would have Liberty Hill. So that is the general surroundings of Cedar Park. Now, what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about the major roads that go through Cedar Park. And so I'm just going to kind of here zoom in, and I want to talk a little bit about the major highways and roads that go through Cedar Park. So the first thing I want to point out is the major highway that you really need to know about Cedar Park, or that relates to Cedar Park, is Highway 183A. And you can see 183A just kind of goes right through the heart here of Cedar Park. Okay, this is where Austin begins here. Okay, now what I want to point out about Highway 183 is that when it enters into Cedar Park, it basically becomes a toll road. So as you go into Cedar Park and then pass into Leander and Liberty Hill, it becomes a toll road. Something to think about, because if you're using 183 as a major conduit into Austin, well, and we're going to look at that in a moment, that's a consideration. Although Cedar Park is such a nice place to live that obviously it's not holding back a lot of people from living in Cedar Park, but it's something to consider. Now, I want to look at some other major roads. Now, you might notice here it says 183 here as well. So, this is 183A. This is 183B. 183B is also, as it goes through Cedar Park, is known as Bell Boulevard. This actually is the original Highway 183, and now it's just basically a road. It's a street. It is a major street that goes through Cedar Park. Something that makes Bell significant for Cedar Park is that Cedar Park is actually developing something called the Bell District, which is an initiative to redevelop part of Cedar Park. This part of, and I used to live in Cedar Park, so I'm quite familiar with Cedar Park. This part of Cedar Park was looking a little bit tired, and that's putting it very nicely. And the powers that be at Cedar Park very wisely said, hey, look, let's develop this. Let's make this look nicer. And so, like I said, they're redeveloping this area. They widened the road. They've leveled some buildings. They're making it look really nice. They've changed the street lights, everything. It looks absolutely amazing. It's not there yet, but it is absolutely in progress. And so 183 is a major, 183B, which is known as Bell, pardon me, is quite significant here as well. Now, I want to zoom in a little bit closer into Cedar Park, and I want to point out a few other major streets and roads and whatnot. Okay, now the next one I want to point out is Palmer Lane. So you can see Palmer Lane coming into, here's where Cedar Park begins. Palmer Lane comes up, and this is actually on the east side of Cedar Park, and it intersects with a road called Whitestone, also known as 1431. So if you hear 1431, that's Whitestone. Some people refer to it as Whitestone. Some people refer to it as 1431. And you can see here's where Cedar Park ends. Here's where Cedar Park ends and becomes Round Rock going this way. So you can see it's a major road that just cuts across horizontally east to west across Cedar Park. Now, what I want to do in this map tour is we're going to go basically from the southeast, and then we're going to work our way up north, and then we're going to go from southeast to northeast and kind of go across to the western part of Cedar Park to the northwest, so forth and so on, kind of making a circle, if you will, as best as we can. And I think that's the best way to tackle it. So here we have Palmer. So we'll come back here in a moment. There's Palmer. Another major road here is Vista Ridge Boulevard. Okay, this is another big one. Okay. Another one that is important is, and I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit here. Oh, we lost it here. Let's see if we can get it back here. Okay, there we go. So another one is New Hope. Okay, New Hope runs parallel to Whitestone. Okay, so, and that runs into Bell, which we've already discussed. Okay, here's Highway 183. We've talked about that already. Whoops. Okay. And another one that's very, very important for Cedar Park is Lakeline. Okay, we'll get into Lakeline in a moment. So let's see if we can draw that line. Lakeline. Okay, boom. All right, there's Lakeline. And another one is Baghdad. Here's Baghdad. And then, of course, we have West Park Street. These are really the major roads that are going to get you where you need to go. Of course, there's other ones in here, but these are the really big ones. And we're going to go ahead and kind of use this as our general kind of orientation towards Cedar Park. Now, one other thing I want to do is, before we get into Cedar Park itself, is I'm going to zoom out here, and I just want to talk a little bit about Cedar Park in relationship to Austin, because this is the Living in Austin channel. So I want to point out here that here you have Austin, and here you have Cedar Park. And the thing I want to highlight is, how do you get to Austin from Cedar Park? So if you're living in Cedar Park, you're working in Austin, somewhere in downtown or north of Austin, how are you getting there? Well, the main highway that's going to take you there is Highway 183. Okay, you can see there 183 just goes all the way down. It actually goes towards the center part of the North Austin area, and then it swings along the east side of the city and then goes down. Okay, so if you're downtown and let's say you're trying to go up to Cedar Park, you're either going to take Mopac to 183 and then go up, or you're going to take Highway 35 to 183 and then go north. Now, that's if you're coming in from downtown. If you're in kind of the more, let's say, northern parts, okay, of the city, then you're probably going to take 45. So very similarly, you would go, if we take this up, Mopac up, it intersects with the 45, and then you could go across like that. And similar to the 35, if you were kind of up here near Tech Ridge, where a lot of tech companies are located, same thing you can see here. It goes up, and you go across, and it takes you to 183, and you would take 183 up. So you can see 183 is the main highway, and then we have a few feeders that go into 183. Perhaps another thing that we could look at is Highway 360, okay? So 360 loops around here, okay? These are quite affluent areas in here, and this, if you were coming from this direction, you could take 360, but again, go into 183 and then go up. So that gives you an idea as to Cedar Park's, connection to Austin. All right, let's now get into Cedar Park and take a look. So we're going to go back in. Okay, so the way we're going to tackle this is we're going to take it from Parmer. So here's Parmer going up. Here's where Cedar Park begins. And we're going to kind of go around Cedar Park, kind of like this. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to zoom in. And we're on Parmer Lane. We're driving down Parmer Lane together, okay? The first thing, here's where Cedar Park begins. The first thing that I want to point out that's really cool is this area right here. This is a very nice park area. You can see here, Avery Ranch. We have a video on Avery Ranch here. Okay, there's a golf course in here, okay? This is part of Austin. But right in here, this park belongs to Cedar Park, and this is Brushy Creek Lake Park. This is a beautiful park. You can see here that there's this lake in here, or it's more of a reservoir. There's a dam right here, actually. And there's tons of trails in here. There's picnic tables. You see a lot of birthday parties happening in there. Very, very nice. Kayaking. People go fishing in here. So this is a very nice recreation area. You definitely, if you're living in Cedar Park, you're going to spend some time here. Very, very nice. Next to Brushy Creek Lake Park is Champions Park, which is also part of Cedar Park. So actually, if you go up here, up Parmer, and go down Brushy Creek Road, this is another park that has trails and a place for kids to play. It has some fields to play sports. And on the other side of Parmer, over here, we have a lot of sports fields. So you'll see a lot of people playing soccer, baseball, whatever in here. So this is a huge recreation area. And that's something I would point out about Cedar Park that is noteworthy, is that Cedar Park really has a lot of parks. So hence Cedar Park. That's not why it's called Cedar Park, but it does have a lot of parks. And this is one of the major ones. And I'll point out a few other recreation areas that are significant as we go through. But this is very green, very nice, year-round. You really can't beat it. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going north. So as we go up Palmer, we get to our first two communities that I think are noteworthy to talk about. So right here, and actually I'm going to extend this on a little bit farther. Okay, right here there are two communities. The first one is Ranch at Brushy Creek, and I do have another video here on the channel. If it's not up yet, it will be shortly, where I tour some properties in this neighborhood. I've actually sold houses in here. Very, very nice community. It's pretty much all built out now, but this goes anywhere. This is usually mid 600s all the way up into $1 million. Very nice community, very nice common areas, pools, all of that. Very quiet, very, very livable community. This is Breakaway Park. You can see Breakaway Park here. And if you look here, actually, I'm going to switch this to a satellite view so that we can see a little bit more clearly on satellite. You can see in here, there is an airstrip right here. And so this is a very, very unique community. There's actually a private airport here. I have another video where I actually tour outside some homes in Breakaway Park. Beautiful homes, mainly $1 million properties. A lot of them back up against the actual airstrip. So people are living in their house. They'll have a hangar basically in their backyard, and they can wake up in the morning and go to their plane and take a spin in their aircraft and then land and be at home for lunch or supper. So this is a really cool community called Breakaway Park. Along this area of Palmer, in here, there's a lot of commercial office here. Here next to Ranch at Brushy Creek, there's a lot of restaurants and dentists and other commercial here. So along Palmer, there is a lot of commercial, but like here, you can see if you go past that in here, you go into this huge subdivision. And then the other way you have Breakaway Park. So that's the first two. And like I said, we have some videos on this that are cool if you want to go back and take a look. You can get a sense of the neighborhood. I actually go drive around in there and you can actually see what it looks like. Okay, we're going to continue going north on Palmer. So we're just on our journey up Palmer. Oops, we got a little bit off the course here. And then we have here Whitestone, which we've already kind of talked about. Now, one thing I want to point out here, and actually let me go ahead and let me center ourselves a little bit more here. So here we have Palmer, and here we have Whitestone, or 1431, that gets into 183. So this is a major section of Cedar Park. Now, what I want to point out here is there's an intersection here that's very significant. So Palmer actually turns into Ronald Reagan. Here you can see Ronald Reagan. And basically, there is a little bit of here's Cabello Ranch. This is a very nice community in Cedar Park. But once you leave about here, you start heading into Leander. Okay, so right here, this becomes Ronald Reagan. So this is very important to understand because you're coming, like, let's say you're coming in from Round Rock, okay, and then you hit this intersection. You go right. It's Ronald Reagan. That's going to take you into a little bit of Cedar Park and then into Leander and beyond. Go left, it goes into Palmer. This is going south would be going into the Austin direction. But if we go west, we have some notable things here. So the first thing I want to point out here is at this intersection, there is some major shopping. We have a huge H-E-B shopping center here with lots of commercial in here, including like Home Depot and all of that. Up here we have Walmart and other shops here. So this is huge shopping. This shopping in here is servicing all of this area of Cedar Park. This is major shopping. Now, if you go down Whitestone, okay, you have commercial all along here, But one thing I want to point out here is you can see right here, Firefly Aerospace. This is a really big space engineering company. Firefly is creating satellites and propulsion systems. I don't know if you would consider them an exact competitor to SpaceX, but very similar business. And they are employing a lot of people in Cedar Park and around Cedar Park. And this is a major, major company that is noteworthy in Cedar Park. So they're located right here. If we keep going, we get to this intersection, which is 1431 or Whitestone, 1431 and 183. And what I want to point out here is there's a few things here that's very interesting. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually zoom in to this area here. And if we look here, the first thing I want to point out is all in here, this is major shopping. This is, you can see here, we got Target, Hobby Lobby, there's Office Depot in here, there's a health food store in here, there's tons of restaurants, Verizon, all that's in here. Okay, up here in this area, you can see here Ascension, Seton, Cedar Park Hospital. Yes, there's a major hospital here, but there's tons of medical parks in here. So all in here, this is basically a medical park area. So it's not just Ascension, Seton Hospital. There's lots of other small clinics and stuff in here. So that is this area here. Now, when you go past 183, we have an area called Town Center. And Town Center really is a major area in Cedar Park that it has to be on your radar if you're considering Cedar Park as a place to live or even just to visit. So the first thing I want to point out is here in Cedar Park, there is the Town Center subdivision. So that's here. And this is a really cool subdivision. This was built by D.R. Horton, and these are smaller, typically smaller homes, but they have a cool design. Basically, it's alley access to the garage, so the front of the house is just the facade of the front, and there's lots of little parks in here. This is a very cute neighborhood. It's a little bit polarizing. Some people really love it. Some people don't like it so much just because the lots are also very, very small in here. But there's a few things in here that's worth pointing out. So the first is Discovery. So Discovery is a major highway that cuts through Town Center, and it actually goes down here. There's some interesting stuff down here that we'll talk about in a moment. Now, the other thing I want to point out, and this is something that you always have to think about when you're buying real estate, you're considering buying a house, is there is actually a railroad that goes right here, and it cuts all the way through Cedar Park. It goes actually all the way into Austin. And you'll notice here that some of these houses back up against this railroad track. So actually there's no, and I used to live actually in this subdivision, so I know quite a bit about it firsthand. You know, there's going to be, not only are these houses going to hear that train every time it comes through, but there's going to be some noise from that train in this area of this subdivision. And one of the things that is true is that this part of Town Center actually typically sells for a little bit less than the other side. And the reason for that is these train tracks. It does have an effect on value. So it is always something to be, you know, thoughtful and to think about. You know, you always, when you're buying a house, you should always be thinking about the things that are around it, not just immediately around it, but nearby, because little things like this, for example, let's say you bought a little bit in here, you didn't really know about the train tracks. Well, you could buy the house, and all of a sudden you start hearing this noise and you're wondering what's going on. Typically, when you hit about here, you don't really hear it that much. In my opinion, that's my opinion. Some people might be more sensitive. Okay, but it's something to consider here. Okay, now the other thing I want to point out is this is a major shopping area, and it's basically about like this here. I'm going to try to draw it here. There we go. And we have, why is it major? We have Costco wholesale. There's a Whole Foods in here. There's a Nordstrom rack in here. There's just tons of, you know, Orange Theory, fitness, all that kind of stuff is in here. Just tons and tons of things in here, and as well as there's an In-N-Out Burger here. So it just gives you an idea of the kinds of shopping that's in here. And if you live here in Town Center, you could actually literally walk over into the shopping center. So it's very convenient. That's one of the things when I lived in this area that I really liked. So that's really cool. Now, the other thing that you really need to know about Town Center that's kind of cool is the Cedar Park Recreation Center. So if I go in here, you can see these two little lakes. And I think that we have to really look at the satellite view to really understand it. Let's look in here. We're going to go in here. Okay, this is roughly the outline of the Recreation Center park area. And this is a really, really nice area. So you can see in here, there's actually little walking paths in here. There's a walking path all the way around this lake. Okay, here, and actually I'm going to switch back to the other view. Let's actually go back. 1 second. There we go. So right here, this little circle here, that's actually the Recreation Center building. They have a gym in there that's very, very cheap. Well, that's a wrap of our Cedar Park Map Tour. You know, we just scratched the surface. Really, there's so much we could have covered. Cedar Park is such a dynamic and fun place to live. If you're thinking about moving to the greater Austin area, to a suburb like Cedar Park or any of the surrounding areas, get in touch with me. All of my information, all of my contact information is in the description of this video. You can shoot me a text, give me a call, book time on my calendar, whatever works for you. And before you go, don't forget to press that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so that you'll be the first to know of new developments happening here in the greater Austin area. And you can join me for neighborhood tours, map tours, and other helpful information that I like to share with people that are considering making Austin home. And one last thing, leave me a comment. I love to read the comments. I love to interact with my audience. I read every single comment and I try to respond to every single one as well. So I look forward to seeing you on the next video. And until then, take care of yourself.